Welcome to episode 6 of Rules of Villainy, where 3 new trading card game players venture to become competitive players and discuss their opinions on Disney's Lorcana. I'm Villain Vince, joined by my 2 co-hosts, Villain Andy and Brad, also known as the Mayor. I'm back, guys, from GenCon.
Welcome.
How you all doing? You guys did an awesome job while I was gone. And as you can see, we're all wearing Pizza Planet shirts.
It wasn't planned. It wasn't planned. Me and Andy got on camera having the same shirts or same Pizza Planet logo, but not the exact same shirts. And then you were like, I'm going to go do it.
I'll be like, peace, guys. I'm going to go run and get it. Oh, just a little tight on me, though. I've gained a lot of weight. I was like, I'm like, oh, it's hugging me. It's hugging me.
Medium.
It's just medium. But no, I think Kirsten did a phenomenal job. I listened to the podcast on the way back from Indianapolis to St. Louis. I did not fall asleep, which is good because I would have died. No, I'm just kidding, guys. You guys did an awesome job. You knocked it out of the park. I really appreciate it. But we got a lot to talk about because Shimmering Skies is coming out this Friday. Are you guys pumped? Because I know I'm pumped.
I'm excited.
I am very excited.
By the time the listeners hear this, they'll be cracking packs and diving in.
Crack them packs. I wish you all the best enchanted luck. And as a person who doesn't have a ton of enchanted luck, I wish you, well, that's not true. I think you guys would
not true.
Disagree. Yeah. That's not true.
You have the enchanted.
Do you want to tell them, Brad? Do you want to tell them why you don't think that's true?
Yeah, because you live in walking distance of a Target and you would like to go to Target and just buy packs and not open them for a week. And then one time you just open a random pack and you show us that you got the Elsa, which is the enchanted card to have out of all 4 sets right now. So
it's also true. It's like Brad makes fun of me a lot, guys, because I don't open packs. I've got a bunch of packs from GenCon that are just sitting. So like I have not opened these. Just a whole bunch of them just sitting on my desk.
When I buy a pack at Target, like I usually have it open before I get to my car. That's how impulsive I am with it. And then you just walk them home and hold on to them for a few days, which is admirable. But
threw them in my bag, and I was like, I'll open them eventually. I have a whole box of Ursula's Return I bought at GenCon. We're going to talk about it a lot. Still unopened, still in the sealed plastic wrap. But before we do that, we got underground news, and we're going to talk about DLC Bologna because their GenCon fam, I hope I pronounced that right, was the first Lorcana player to get an invite to both North America and the European Continentals by being top 16 at DFW, the Dallas-Fort Worth Disney Lorcana Challenge, and the Bologna, which just happened this past weekend, coinciding with me being at GenCon, and he was a top 8 player. That's pretty insane. What a wild ride that is to get 2 qualifications.
Yeah, no kidding.
It's crazy.
I started following his journey in Dallas when he was posting a lot in the local groups on Facebook and was really pumping the dig a little deeper card. Like every match, like Dig did it again. And I was like, I've never seen that card played, but he's making it work. And it's absolutely
Brad,
crazy.
you love those weird cards.
I do. I wish I had
unusual. Or as Andy likes to say, jank. He's a
jank card.
I wish I had the capacity to build them on my own and experiment with them without the pressure from Andy telling me that it's bad and find success with it like he did, because it's really incredible. I would have never thought to ever use that card. It's a cool card, but at an 8 cost sing together, I don't know when I would use it, but I would have to experiment just like any card in this game. Like there's probably cool ways to do it, and he figured it out.
I'm with you though on Triton's Decree, man. I don't care what Andy says. It's you're Gantu's my man, just like Triton's Decree is your card. But Andy, so neither Brad or I had a chance to watch the finals, which I heard is a phenomenal match. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Oh yeah, so this, to be clear, wasn't Din was not in this match. He did qualify for both of them, which I hope they're not on like the same weekend, right? That would be would be kind of mean to do.
Yeah. No way.
Well, I will say, not confirmed, but my understanding, at least from, they haven't announced, this is all hypothetical. So please, don't write comments to us saying you're absolutely wrong. I could be wrong. Not sure. But I do recall very vaguely that while you can get qualifications to both, you can't compete in both. You have to pick or choose.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So I'm pretty sure, because I think they are going to be on the same weekend.
Oh, really?
Now, that was a while ago. A lot of logistics, like we understand when they had 2,000 people tournaments and Melee crashed, so maybe that's not a wise idea to do. But it is very, very possible that you can't do both.
We've seen Ravensburger before make all kinds of smart, in my opinion, pivots towards different things as the scene progresses and the community gives their feedback and stuff. So it'll be interesting to see how that all pans out and which one he decides to go to, and how they do all those world championships. But yeah, the finals, I was actually at a birthday party, but I had good enough cell reception that I was able to watch the finals cast by I believe it was Spessy and Baker. It was, I would say, possibly the best Lorcana game ever broadcast in the history of Lorcana. I know we're only 1 year in, but especially game one of this match, I really don't want to spoil it too much because I really encourage you to go out. There's not an official VOD of it on the Twitch channel, but there are. I believe Spessy may have one, and there are some others that sort of broadcast it as well, simulcasted, if you will, I guess. But there were several times, I believe, in the match where the commentators were essentially like, "Well, this is over. Scoop, head on out. Game 2, they're on the play, draw, whatever." And it turned out to be quite the barn burner in the end. And then, I guess to spoil it a little bit, the red-blue player did come out on top. It was a wild deck. They had a lot of the staples you'd expect, but also some
23.
really 23 items. Is that how many there were?
23.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would hope they had Scuttle in there, right?
Yeah, Scuttle and the Queen. Yeah.
The Queen was doing work, like a Savige screen back in the day. It was doing work.
To like make a joke that I think only the folks that'll listen to Podcana will and stuff. It's like you do the hypergeometric math on that so that you can guarantee which hit rate you're gonna get. You need to have a lot of items to have Scuttle and both the Queen in your deck. So quite fascinating. I'm excited. I need to watch it. I don't know when I'll have time. I'm still recovering from like con fatigue. But we'll do that. So moving on to DLC Toronto. You guys talked about it up last week that I was going to go, but bummer, my passport expired and I've been trying to renew it and it's bureaucracy. Like it's not going to get renewed and returned on time. Honestly, really my fault. Can't blame Uncle Sam. I wish I could.
I'll blame him anyway.
Procrastination. Yeah. But we'll cover it here. If you folks are interested. So it's going to be the last of the set 4 meta without Bucky. So kind of interesting. But if you're super interested, you want to you're going to go to Toronto. You want to understand how can I prep? What decks do I want to do and stuff? Just make a comment below. Let us know. You can tweet at us. Brad is the mayor, is our expert social media guy over here, and let us know, and we can make some special content for our listeners on how to prepare for that. But it'll be interesting. I'm excited to see how that's going to go without Bucky. I'm a little disappointed that I'm not going to go. I probably would still play Ruby Amethyst because it's my sweet little deck, and I want to give it its last little hurrah. But although I think without Bucky in the meta, I would probably maybe not recommend that deck because I think folks are going to tech against Ruby Amethyst more heavily. And so, and it did not have a great conversion rate. I don't know about Bologna, but I know at Fort Worth it did not have a great conversion rate. From
particularly bad.
But it did win.
It did, but that was also an unusual deck.
A very skilled player.
For sure, yeah,
for sure.
Very, very skilled player.
Yeah. So, but yeah, let us know. We'll talk about the DLC Toronto, the results either way after that happens. But we're gonna mostly focus on Shimmering Skies because we're so excited. I tell you what, I went to 2 League nights this week, and it was like, man, I'm so ready for these new cards. Like, just so ready for it. But with that, the new OP kit has been announced, and some stores have gotten it already and shown some photos of what's in it. So what do we got there with the new OP kit, Brad?
The promo cards this time around are Stitch, or it's the Tug of War, right? Not necessarily Stitch, but the Tug of War card in steel. The Nala is the big 64 count card that there's 2 packages of, and then Chicha, the I can't think of the name of the color. It's blue, Sapphire. The Sapphire 2-drop draw for.
And he calls himself an expert over here.
I have never used those words.
Not understanding the inks over here.
I allow you to use those words, but I've never used them myself. And the last promo card is Finders Keepers. The Amethyst draw 5 cards or something with Iago and the Lamp 3 cards. Yeah, 5 would be insane. Yeah, 5 is 5 costs. What I was thinking of.
Draw 5 cards cost 10. Yeah.
So yeah, those are the cards. They all look pretty good. We saw a preview of them tonight. I'm kind of excited to be getting those. Any thoughts on them?
They're pretty cool. I like the Stitch one. I'm glad Stitch got one. He's one of my favorites.
Sure.
Yeah. But I'm just excited as always to get a playset of them.
Sure. Yeah. We played enough leagues. It's pretty. Yeah.
We saw the pins as well, right? Those. Yep. I think the pins did end up being the ones that were like supposedly seen on someone
Ryan Miller's
backpack or whatever
in Atlanta. There's on our local Discord. It's still back and forth.
Was it Atlanta or was it Lille?
I don't know. Picture of someone's backpack with these pins on it, and some people said it was Ryan Miller
Warner in Lille, or Ryan,
who wasn't there. Yeah, and then they said it was Steve Warner in Lille, but they said it was Ryan Miller in Atlanta. Somebody had these on their bag. We got a picture of them. We thought,
you know what? Both of them had it. I'm sure they both had it.
Yeah, let's just say both of them had it.
But it was my backpack, actually.
Yeah.
Sorry.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, the pins that we're talking about are the red Sisu from set 4, the 8-cost uninkable big be prepared on a stick, and the blue Hades from set 1, the legendary blue Hades that puts you in the ink. A selected card into the opposing person's inkwell. They look
to go for Sisu. I thought that was the 3-cost inkable Sisu art.
Oh, you might be right. My bad.
All the Sisus look so similar, but it has to be
true.
Y'all, I'm just telling you, if you've got complaints, write to Constituents Corner. Write us. The mayor will read them. He takes his constituents very seriously.
Did you just shadow drop a future bit? This Constituents Corner?
I don't know. Maybe you're gonna have to listen to more episodes to find out.
We got one more pin. As always, there is a Lorcana banner pin, and this time it is the amber color. So it's clearly they're doing the ink colors. So this will be the 5th one that's been released in the OP kits. The only other one that we don't have is an amethyst one, which some people on this podcast do have because they gave them out as press pins or just extra pins at conventions last year. So I'm hoping in the next set that they re-release that purple one so everybody can have a chance at getting it because it's pretty expensive on the secondhand market right now. But yeah, they all look really good.
Just don't buy it. If you see it on the site, Dan, I'm like, we're not a financial podcast by any means. There are plenty of if you're looking for financial advice, you're watching the wrong YouTube channel. You've taken a wrong U-turn. You should stay here, learn about Lorcana. It's an awesome game. But what I will say, do not buy it on you unless I will add one caveat, which is you can get the Maleficent cardboard. With the backing that it came on. You can get that because it's likely that when they do it is likely that we're going to get an amethyst pin in the future set. Not confirmed. We don't have any secret information. but it seems likely that's going to be the next one. Won't have that backing. So if you really like want to be that 100% collector, don't buy just a bare pin. Buy the pin with the cardboard backing. But otherwise, I would honestly just wait and get it.
Yep.
Even still, don't spend that much money. I've seen some of them going for $400, and that is
listed for. I don't know if it's ever going to sell for that, but yeah, it's insane. Yeah,
don't pay that much, right? Like
absolutely not.
Pins are easily under $100 item for sure. Yeah. Don't get caught up in that.
I tell you what I'm excited about and looks gorgeous in person is the Winnie the Pooh lore counter. So
gonna be a
I
hot
tell you
item.
what, they're really leaning into the Winnie the Pooh Honey Wizard artwork. Yep. We got a mat and we got a lore counter. I mean, eventually we're gonna probably get like an enchanted of that at some point. We're probably gonna get deck.
Can you imagine? Yeah,
we're gonna get it all. It even has a pin, right? Like I think I even have that pin
set too.
My desk. I do, yeah, right here.
Of course you do. It's a beautiful pin. It's a beautiful card. I even showed there was a friend of a friend that I saw this weekend, and she saw me hold the chapter 1 box, and she's like, What is Lorcana? I see it all the time, and I explained to her it's just basically Magic, and she's like, oh, my brothers play Magic, maybe, and I love Disney. I'm like, hey, we got an opportunity to teach it to you, and just to show you what the art's kind of like, I held up my Winnie the Pooh playmat, and she's like, oh my god, like I have to play this now. And so Ravensburger, Disney, they know what they're doing with this beautiful art and on these the characters that people love, and why not milk that card?
Yeah, I agree. And, if you're a new player, it's just diming out here, there is a great new product out there for new players called the Gateway, which you should absolutely, if you're a new player, haven't played it, you can go grab a starter deck or you can go buy the Gateway and play it. I would probably not recommend it if you're listening to this podcast for our competitive content. It's probably like way too basic for you. There aren't any exclusive cards in the Gateway product. Right. But if you're an existing player and you're trying to get maybe your spouse into it, you want to get your kid into it, you want to get your friend in it, the Gateway product I think is good for that. I'm planning on buying one to try to get one of my friends into Lorcana. But otherwise, like that's the only reason I'm going to pick it up.
Yeah. My Kirsten and I bought one. Our plan is maybe to like record, playing that and make it maybe some bonus content here for the listeners and the viewers on YouTube and stuff. I do really, really like the way that Gateway is set up. They have you basically play these sort of starter decks in a set order. Don't shuffle them. It helps teach you the game as you go through. And then the really fun part is they have like these little predetermined booster packs, if you will, that you get to open in between the games and sort of build your deck as you go. So it kind of it's not just like this bland tutorial. It kind of gets you hooked on that opening packs and getting those cards. They really needed to put like an exclusive card on there so that when people ripped it, they got one. They're like, oh my gosh, and just really.
I mean, I'm glad they didn't though, because I think it would have.
Right.
It was. I think it was one of those things where they didn't want folks like us to rush out to buy it and stuff. It is very equivalent if folks have played Pokemon. There's a product called Pokemon Arena that's very, very similar to this. Find this in your board game aisles in any of your stores or LGSs. I think the only miss, but I get why they didn't do it because they want to keep it a reasonable price point for newcomers, is I wish they would have put like at least 2 booster packs in there, just to like true booster packs, just to give folks like the like, oh, this is what I do, like, and like there's some mystery behind it. I get why they didn't do it. It would have added some cost and some complexity. They want this to probably be on shelves for an extended period of time and not have to like reprint it.
And the booster packs would be limited to whatever set was out when they released, right? Like, so they eventually become dated, but I mean, the cards are still good, but we could be 5 sets ahead of what those booster packs are if those are still on the shelf. So
the cards in the game though are still going to be dated or whatever. But I wonder if it has something to do with like where it sits in stores and things like that, because like Vince said, this is in your board game aisle. If you're used to walking past the Pokemon Magic aisle and seeing Lorcana and thinking, oh, maybe I should play it, this is not in that aisle generally. This is going to be with the other board games, with the other Ravensburger, like the Villainous games and things like that. And so I feel like the booster packs would almost take it away from that compartmentalized board game aspect to it.
I think that's right. So, you want to talk a little bit about how different leagues handle pricing for folks. So, I will just say, like, obviously, I think if you're listening to this podcast, you probably go to a regular league. You know what your individual stores do in your area about how they reward pins. We can talk a little bit about kind of how things happen here in our area. If you're a remote kind of listener, don't have access to a ton of game stores, you maybe want to travel. How does this whole pricing work? So, Andy, you play at a store pretty regularly that just kind of like does it sort of willy-nilly. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's actually from a standpoint of getting the promos and getting access to them, it is incredibly beneficial. But basically they run their league every week and they take a portion of the prizes. So, if there are 8 sets of like a pin or something, they take, and there's 8 weeks it goes over, they take one of each, one of the pins or whatever. So it is divvied out over the course of the event, but depending on how you do that week, you get, first place gets to go up and pick an item first, and second place gets another item. And so it is really nice in that aspect to be able to sort of win, some of the more desirable items early on and not have to like sweat the whole season wondering if you're going to be able to walk away with one of those pins or not.
Yeah. And it's also nice, sometimes you get a sticker sheet, sometimes you get a table placard.
Yeah, it is has its benefits for sure.
Most stores don't do that, which is fine.
Yeah.
I mean, but he's got his own little role going, and I have no qualms with that because it's a very competitive league every week, right?
Yes,
like,
absolutely. That is the downside, right?
If it's not a social league, right?
Absolutely right. If you are, if there are definitely more social players there as well, and we are very welcome to all folks. But if you want to come to try and win and get something for winning, it's definitely a league that is more designed towards that rather than like the social aspect of it.
Yeah, and Brad, you play at a store in this area we call Grapes Games.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you got started. I bring them up because we will have a special edition stream coming in the next few weeks. More information on that on our socials and probably next week's episode. So stay tuned. If you haven't, make sure you like, subscribe, hit that bell icon. Stay tuned to all of our updates and like and subscribe on all of our social media. But Brad, you want to tell us a little bit about how Grapes Games does the promos?
Yeah, absolutely. They do it pretty much by the book, the way Ravensburger recommends it in the OP kit, where essentially you play for 4 weeks, you get points. They do a constructed tournament there every Sunday at 2:00, and then for every win that you get 2 stickers on the sheet. For every loss that you get 1 on the sheet. So you're playing. And there's bonus ways to get stickers as well by teaching someone to play or by bringing a friend to play. This is all in the OP kit. They have all kinds of stuff in there to recommend, just making it fun for everybody. So you're not, losing out. And at the end of those 4 weeks, you'll have the people with the most stickers will get the pricing based on what they recommend. After 4 weeks, the first place person will get a pin. The second place person will get a pin. And then everybody else will get one of the cards. And something like that. I don't have it in front of me at the moment, but there's a step-by-step of what everybody should get at any given time. And then after all 12 weeks, then there's a special prize structure for the remaining pins and the remaining cards. And then Grapes even does an extra raffle at the end of every week to raffle off a couple cards to a few people who didn't 3-0 for that week. And it's really fun. It's one of my favorite places to play. And like you said, the first place that I ever did play. And just grateful to have them in the community.
And they're like they lean in on that Sunday as a social
one, right? They just started a competitive night on Wednesday nights that unfortunately I can't often make, but you
can never make. You have a prior engagement.
There's nothing like Graves having to throw the plushie halfway across the store because someone hit the special event of the week and they're eligible for those extra points and stuff. That's
I should touch on that too. They've introduced their own themes too, where recently it's been if you get 2 Buckies and 2 Hey Heys or either a combo of those out, just something random. Or Father's Day, if you get any father, they're colorless. You can put them in any deck, and then you get a free pack at the end of the day if you end the day with the plushie that gets tossed around. Every time somebody hits that stipulation, the plushie Mickey Mouse will get thrown in their direction, and whoever has it at the end gets it, and it gets that extra pack.
Just don't ever play against Brad when you're doing those special events, because he'll make sure you never get what you want out.
That's true.
Yeah, so just saying, I did one of those.
I don't think you've been back since, have you?
I have not. I've not. I had such a terrible experience. I haven't been back. No,
that was an Easter one, right?
Yeah, it was bunnies an Easter. I kid. They're just a little far for me to go to regularly, and so that's generally why I don't make it. They're a great store though. But the reason why I was giving Brad a little trouble about Wednesday is because I run a league on Wednesday in a local store here. I would say kind of hybrid-ish. It's geared more social, but we do have, I would say we have, for a social league, have very competitive players there. So it's a great way to get like practice in. But we do it's very similar, I would say, to Grapes, except for we just kind of like add up the points and like just raffle off with who's there, like with a little like spin wheel, and then people pick prizes. So as you can kind of see, like the whole demonstration of doing this is each store kind of does it a little bit different. And I'll be honest, there are no right or wrong ways. Ravensburger is very awesome to provide such great OP kit support for the stores to give out, and I think as long as stores do it in some sort of fair way, whatever way that they want to do it, I think that's fine. And I think all 3 ways that all these stores do it is totally fine. Whether it's competitive to give those players that do really well, the first chance of the prize, whether it's like, come to most events, which is how I think Grapes does it. Like do well, have fun, but also the more you show up, the more likely you're gonna end up getting something. Right. And where the league that I run is more kind of just like if you're more of a thanks just for coming on that particular week. And it's kind of random.
It's really great too, because when I started, there was only like 6 to 8 of us at the most when we played. So it was kind of cool at the beginning because we were almost all guaranteed prizing, right? But what's really cool is over the course of the 5, at the time that you're hearing this, 5 sets, is that the weeklies at Grapes on Sundays is like can be up to 25 people sometimes, just because depending on the time of the year, or like if the sets are happening and people want practice, or if they just want to casually play. It's really coul having been part of that original, like, less than 10 people and seeing how much it's grown. And they
I totally get it. It's like I had at the place we all play that I run the league at, I was the only one in set 1. So I was like I was the set championship for set 1. I got all the pins, I got all the cards.
And I want to clear the air just preemptively, because I don't not make Grapes because Fortuna exists. I don't make it because Wednesday nights are just really hard for me. And I don't often make Fortuna as well. Yeah, so I want to get out ahead of that before Kristen hears that.
I just want to be clear. I want to say, who was at Fortuna tonight on a Wednesday?
It was an anomaly.
The mayor.
It was an anomaly.
The mayor could have gone to Grapes. He chose Fortuna.
No, I had to be back in time to do the podcast. But no.
Here's the thing. I will say, for those that are listening that are familiar with us in the state, we're very blessed in the St. Louis area with as many stores we have that support Lorcana and the community we have built here in St. Louis. And it is hard to, like, there's so many stores I love that I wish I could play in all the time, but life comes in the way, as it does for all of us and stuff. There are stores that Andy plays at that I'd love to play at more regularly that I can't. Same for Brad. We all try to do as many as we can, and sometimes that's not possible. But we're going to move on to our last card reveal for set 5, Shimmering Skies, which is Scar, Vengeful Lion. This is an emerald Rare card, 4-cost inkable for strength 2 willpower and quest for 1 lore. It is a story-born villain with ward, and its ability is Life's Not Fair, is it? Whenever one of your characters challenges a damaged character, you may draw a card. So Brad's over there like scratching himself because he's like so excited. He's like ready for this. So
we
Brad,
finally do Scar. We finally do Scar, and you take it from me. But no, I'm totally.
Brad
just
is
kidding.
prepared. Brad's ready. He's like, this is the Jeremy Irons I wanted.
I was even going to do the voice too of Life's Not Fair, is it? And you did it, and I'm like, oh, Vince. But no,
great minds think alike, sir. Great minds think alike.
That's true. No, I've been super excited for not this card in particular, but just Scar getting the enchanted treatment. I don't know if you said that because I was over here shaking my head about you reading the whole card, but yeah, it's Scar's one of my favorites. He is my favorite, probably villain of all time. I think "Be Prepared" is the best Disney song, and people are going to go absolutely crazy that I said that. But and I will take it. I will argue that to the grave and die on that hill. But no, I think the Enchanted is beautiful, and if you're listening and you pull it, I want to talk to you because I am going to do whatever it takes to get that card. And it's going to be the first card that I think that I ever grade. Just that's how much I love.
Wow!
I love yeah.
That's wow. That's crazy. Yeah, and so the artwork is a little different. So the artwork for the card itself, the non-enchanted, is by Cesar Vergara. The enchanted is done by Dominic Mayer, and that's going to be that chase card for you, huh? This set?
I think so. Yep. I know a lot of people are itching to get that Mufasa, which I agree is incredibly beautiful. But Scar's my boy. I'm chasing this one.
I mean, nice he's America's Gunkle. If you will.
I love the colors in it though. That green is a very nice color set of greens. I really like it.
I'll just say that you'll come to my TED Talk one day where I talk about how most Disney villains of the late 80s, early 90s are queer coded. But hey, totally fine. I'm just saying. I've seen Ursula.
I'm not arguing with you.
Totally fine. But yeah, so what do we...
do you feel like Tim Curry could play a nice Ursula, like live action? It'd be a great Ursula.
That would be wild.
I can see it.
So what do we think of this card?
It's one of those things where like my excitement for the character supersedes the card, right?
I love how it's like Brad's like, I want this card. How's the card? Meh.
I'm gonna try to keep my bias aside. Like I'm geeking out entirely for the card, the Enchanted itself. I don't know that I can make this work in an Emerald deck, but again, it's one of those things where I have to see it in practice and see what it could possibly do. His 2 body is so easy to take off of the board in so many ways. He does have wards, so he can't be targeted, but just to grab your swords takes him out, and or any kind of board effect. I can't think of the word I'm thinking, or can't think AOE. Of the word in my head. AOE. Thank you. So yeah, it's something, maybe a Hyenas deck or something if you're doing something themed, a Lion King, Scars, and Hyenas deck, because they introduced a lot of Hyenas in Emerald this set. But I honestly don't know the effect of getting that draw. If you have a character, what is it? Whenever one of your characters challenges a damaged character, so maybe Emerald Steel, get a Tink out there to put AOE damage across the board, or there's Andy, some ways to make it work.
I think right, like damage matters cards are kind of hard, wouldn't you would say, right?
It's not a very common thing to see. I think a lot of times you're aiming to kill banish the character completely. You're aiming to get rid of it in one fell swoop, because the idea of leaving damage on a character means that that character gets to keep doing its thing, but it also, has a chance to not allow you to follow up with more damage. I agree with what Brad said. I don't like the idea that this has 2 willpower, especially at 4 cost. Grab your sword is hard castable the next turn by the opponent. But I think this will work a lot like the Queen of Hearts, the red one. that you would shift on. You could shift it on 2, I think, but it was a 5 cost, right? 4, 3, and whenever one of your characters challenged an opposing character, draw a card. That one is, in my opinion, unequivocally better because
and that's that sensing weakness card, and that wasn't much play with that. But right. I got to ask you both, particularly you, Andy. You're our sealed king, as sealed and draft king, as Brad alluded to last week. Lots of sealed and draft events are going to be happening. Do you pick this card? Do you put this in your deck for sealed and draft?
I think with the ward you do, right?
I mean, I think even without the ward, there's probably not too much to remove it. This card, if you take this card, one, it's inkable, so that's nice. So like, I wouldn't feel worried about getting this card, but you're looking to basically play this and not do anything with it. Period. Yeah. Just leave it there and only use your other characters to attack. The real question is like, are there going to be better cards to play at the 4 slot? That, how often are you going to be able to trigger on this damaged opposing character? Draw is incredibly powerful in limited formats, but I don't know how prevalent damaged characters will be. That said, I know that there are a lot of cards in this set that seem to rehash or trigger on this damaged character motif. So perhaps we will see a little more prevalence in this. And definitely in limited and sealed, it's going to be more common than, in constructed. You won't have the tools that you normally have to be able to take out something in one shot. But I don't know that this is the first card I'm taking out of the pack. That's for sure. I mean, if it's the Enchanted, I am, because I know that I can trade it to Brad for his firstborn or like his left kidney or something like that. But, other than that,
law of surprise.
I'm thinking you're probably down to maybe half the pack or so before you start really considering this one. But I will certainly eat my own shoe or whatever next week if I come back and find out that this card is actually really good after I do a couple of these sealed and draft events this weekend.
You guys heard it here first. Andy's gonna eat his shoe.
Special live content.
Joke's on you. I wear Crocs. They're not. Are they considered shoes? Sponsor us, Crocs. I would love.
Yeah.
ROV Crocs. That'd be fire.
I was gonna say you actually like wear shoes from the like candy machine, the Racers Play, and help me out, Wreck-It Ralph.
Yeah.
Which is
I knew you'd get there.
Yeah,
they're basically candy cane shoes. They're they were a gift from a close friend, and I thought Crocs were the stupidest thing ever, and then I put them on, and I was like, yeah, comfy.
Any last thoughts about Scar before we move on to the main segment?
Hit up Brad when you pull one.
Yeah,
for sure.
That's all I was gonna say. You pull that enchanted Scar, we need to talk. I have plenty of other enchanteds and cards, and God forbid cash, but I need to get this card. That is all.
Well, there you go. You get it. You set the price. Brad wants it. Brad wants it bad. Well, we're going to move on to the main segment where you get to hear me talk about my experience at GenCon. So GenCon, for those that don't know, is a large, one of the largest tabletop RPG kind of convention in the United States. 70,000 people gather in Indianapolis, Indiana. This year, for the first time ever, totally sold out. So they usually always sell out of their 4-day badges, but then they sell like most conventions, like a daily badge, sold out completely. But even before the start of the convention. So wild. And I'll tell you what, it showed. The place was packed. And as I said earlier, I'm still recovering, like trying to get that sleep. But what was really great is it was the 1-year anniversary of Lorcana, and Lorcana released there last year at GenCon for the first chapter. A little disappointed. I was hoping they would release Shimmering Skies earlier.
Yeah,
they did not. Like everybody else, gotta wait for that LGS release. But I did get this pin, this first chapter pin, Mickey exclusive pin. And I love how it has that little like one lore
at the bottom. Yeah,
Yeah.
number one for 1 year anniversary.
Yeah. Now I have to say one thing to Ravensburger right now. If you do this every year, which I hope you do, you need to keep this format. Because
you
if
want
you
the same
change,
pin with a 2?
I don't want the same pin, but I want the same kind of like octagonal shape ish,
And put a 2 at the bottom. Yeah.
and put a 2 at the bottom and stuff. I don't want like what I don't. It's like getting a book series where like you buy like a series of 7 books, and the 4th book is they change it. They change the format, and then then they go back because everybody was upset about it, and you've got this random one in the middle. Please don't do that. Like I'm a little OCD. I want them all to look like
I would be the same way.
It'd be like if they changed the pins for the OP kit. Like I'd be like, why'd you do this?
Right before the last color was released. The last banner is actually like flipped upside down.
Yeah.
Do you know how mad people would be?
Oh, it's great.
I was about to ask.
I'm on board with it.
Regarding the GenCon pin, would you be upset if they kept the same pin but they just put a 2 on it? Would that be kind of disappointing?
I mean, maybe a little disappointing, but I as long as it's the same realm. I mean, I do hope they change it to something else. Like, I love don't get me wrong, the BLT Mickey is my favorite, and I really, you get excited about Scar if they ever make an enchanted. I'll do anything.
Just get the gold one.
Look, as someone who works very, very hard to make sure that one of his co-hosts goes to GenCon and picks him up one of those pins, I personally hope that they don't do just like the same exact thing with a number 2 in it. All right, I would I put a lot of work into this. Okay, so definitely a different pin next time around.
Fair enough. You're both. I did get you both pins,
and we appreciate you.
Doing loops around the Ravensburger booth. Hey, can I get a pin? Hey, can I get a pin?
It seemed like they were giving them out pretty generously.
like wearing mustaches.
Bonjour, une pin, please.
I also, not from the Ravensburger booth, but while we're talking about like the Bonjour, I did get this German pack. There's a vendor that was selling the Lorcana, and I didn't buy. I was like not gonna buy anything from them because I mostly had everything I needed. But I was just curious, and I was walking away, and out of the corner of my eye, I see the Floodborn, but it was in German, and I was like, "Oh, on a lark, I'm gonna buy this." So I bought a pack in German, and it's Offiziers der Flugenstallatenten, which I'm sure our German listeners are absolutely like, what did you just say? You butchered our language. But yeah, I was like, I will say, I'm with you, Andy. I want as many foreign language packs as I can get in Lorcana. Like, I think
they're really cool.
Are you going to open it?
I don't know, maybe eventually, but for now, I'm going to keep it.
You could have a German sad beast.
You could.
You could have a German sad beast.
So
with GenCon, they open the big doors for the event hall for where everybody, all the booths are at 10 a.m. The convention opens at 6 a.m. And so since they're not doing Shimmering Skies, there wasn't like last year people were waiting until like at midnight the day before, like until 10 a.m. to like get the thing. In fact, I met a guy while I was playing one of these side events who did that last year, and they like had moved them around so many times that I don't know if it was Steve or Ryan, but somebody like came out to them and they're like, they were originally first in line, and because they kept being told to like go elsewhere because of the fire marshal and stuff and the GenCon folks, they ended up not being first in line. But Ryan and Steve one of them came out to him and was like, I'm so sorry you guys waited, and like you should have been. They gave them one product of like everything they were selling that year for free. So they gave them like both mats for free, a trove, the deck, but like everything they were selling at GenCon last year. They gave them one of each for free for like the first like 8 or so people that were like waiting and had been shuffled around that they had identified. So real wild, but also crazy nice that they pay attention like that. But anyway, the reason why I'm telling that is because you line up. So I knew they were selling a first chapter trove. And that's what I want, because I have a sealed chapters 2, 3, and 4. I want to get the sealed chapter 1, so I put on display in the background here. So we get to convince my friends to get there a little early with me. We get there, and I'm thinking, oh, we're in the first 100. They're going to do, they only did like 50 or 60 a day. So we didn't get the first day. So I go, okay. Second day, go there. Well, now the line's further away than where we are. I need to get there an hour earlier. So it's like, forget it. I'm not going to do it. I don't need it. And so I asked the folks at the Ravensburger booth, I'm like, hey, are you going to have it on Sunday? You know, you're going to have product on Sunday. And they're like, yep, absolutely. We're going to have product on Sunday. So I did this, like another event I was doing. Because like I said, GenCon is all sorts of things. It's not just, you know, card games, board games, RPGs, D&D, you name it. Nerds, I mean, it's nerd heaven. If you haven't been, you should go. It is a little overwhelming, though, I will say. I do think both of you would enjoy it. I especially think, actually, Kirsten would really enjoy it, too. They've like got this awesome art alley, although you might be bankrupt when you come back. So, maybe not. So I had another event that started at 9. So I was like, do I do this other event? Or do I skip it and wait in line and get there at 6 a.m.? And she's like, the Ravensburger employee's like, no, you can do the other event. We're going to have, well, she didn't say you could do the other. She was like, we're going to have product on Sunday, right? So I don't want to mislead. So I do the other event on Saturday, and I just have this feeling like maybe I should go check before I get up at 6 a.m. Or, well, I have to get up at 5 a.m. to get at the convention at 6 a.m. on a Sunday, the last day of the convention, to stand in line. And I walk by the booth and I go, hey, so do you still have troves for tomorrow? And she's like, no, actually,
no.
We did get our shipment in. And I was like, no. Oh, it's really kind of a bummer. But not all is lost, because I did score the gift set.
Oh, cool.
Nice.
So
gotta seal one of those
until I decide to either get a first chapter sealed trove and pay the amount of money that people are asking, which is an arm and a leg.
Don't do it.
I'd wait.
I will. This will have to do, and it's fine.
Yeah. That's not nothing to be ashamed of. I mean, that's still pretty rare to come by now. For you probably played. Did you pay MSRP at the?
Yeah, so it's funny you mentioned that. So I did. It was $30, but so we mentioned like some folks that went. The Jimmy and Maggie were there as well, and they had they bought one, and on the first day, that Thursday, and Ravensburger was charging $60. And I think Jimmy was like, "No, I'm gonna pass." But I think Maggie and her husband bought one, but they ended up refunding the difference. It was just an error they made in their thing, so I ended up paying $30 for it.
Good.
And they actually didn't run out of those until like kind of late on Sunday. So, you know, if you were like, I didn't buy that until Sunday, because I was like, what triggered it was I was walking around. And they have a bunch of, like, you know, booths of, like, vendors that are selling cards and stuff. And one had that on sale for $100. And I was like, well, I can just go to a Ravensburger booth and buy it for $30. You know, is what it is. But yeah, I did do some events, though. So I did the Chapter 1, 2 sealed draft, Chapter 3, 4 sealed draft. And I won this gorgeous.
Hey,
let's go.
To the audio listeners, he's holding up a playmat right now with 6 different characters on it. It was exclusive to GenCon. It's really cool.
Beautiful.
And I think they're all set 2 and 3 characters, right? Am I remembering that right? So we got Chernobog's followers.
Chernobog. Yeah, Chernobog and Jim Hawkins are set 3, and then Alice. So is Kita, and then Alice, Bell, and Hey Hey are set 2.
Yeah. So no Ursula's return, but yeah, it's cool. I wish now that I have this, I wish I had gotten the 2023 Matt. That was at
Yeah,
GenCon.
that's a
First
whole lot.
one, they're
But,
like thousands of
Don't
dollars.
want to open that can of worms.
yeah, not doing that. So I won the first. Well, I didn't win so much as like they gave a mat out for anybody that went 3-0 in these kind of side events. So I did the first chapter, first and second sealed draft, which is kind of weird. Love to get your kind of thoughts on it. So the way that worked is you got 3 packs of set 1. And that was your sealed portion, right? So you got to keep those. You open them up. And then they gave you 3 packs of chapter 2. And that was your draft portion. So the way they did it is you got to open up your sealed portion. You got a few minutes to kind of look through them. And then they moved on to the sealed section and they put you in 8 people pods like you do for draft. And just like draft, you go around just standard doing the draft. And then you kind of built that up that way. So, yeah, thoughts? Hey, sorry about that. We had some, technical issues.
I'm sorry, we seem to be having some technical difficulties.
So you did the set 1, set 2 sealed draft split 3-3.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts about that?
I'm interested in trying that. I like the idea of half of it being sealed because sealed's my preferred format, but then it also adds in the complexity of the extra layer of thinking in the draft format as well. So you're not committed to both, or committed to one or the other. You have your opportunity to get what you want with your sealed, and then you have the opportunity to pass around and kind of, articulate what the best card is here and what I want to give the other people. And when knowing what you have in the first 3, in the sealed. So it's interesting. I think I would like to try that sometime. I think stores around here would allow that.
Yeah, and they do give you you do open your 3 packs before you do the draft portion.
You do, yes.
Yeah, so
it's interesting.
It is really cool. The reason I tend to like draft over sealed is because with sealed you open your packs and the Lorcana gods have either blessed you or they haven't, right? And it sort of limits you, whereas with the draft portion you get this one man's trash is another man's treasure, right? You grab something from a pack that you think fits with yours, but the idea of sealed gives you that sort of base because that's one of the harder parts of draft is that first couple cards that you're drafting, you are sort of banking on being able to find cards that synergize with it and help it out later in the game. So if you have this 3 packs worth of cards that you're already looking at, now you immediately have a game plan to start drafting for in these first couple packs. So that definitely sounds like a really spicy thing, and I also will take my money. Let's do one of those.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I was interesting. People had some mixed opinions on it. But it was really interesting. I will say, kind of bouncing off of your point there, Andy, that one of the things that's interesting about draft is sometimes you get pulled to the shiny cards that are great and constructed, which are not so great in a limited format. And I will say what's nice about doing this at Gen Con is I pretty much have all the cards that I need, right? So I was spoiler alert, I did get a enchanted Pride Lands, so I absolutely took that.
Let's go
in the set 3-4 draft.
Did you play it?
I did not play it.
Oh,
I'm not a heathen like y'all.
Is that the one you went 3-0 in?
No, I didn't.
Oh, well, see if you played the Pride Lands, maybe you would have.
Only I'd played the
Pride Lands wins games.
Yep.
Pride Lands
my motto.
Wins games.
I've always said that.
No, I did. I gotta be prepared though in one of my 3 first chapter packs, and that was golden things I have. I did a multiplayer. That was fun. A little interesting about how that worked with Melee, which we can maybe talk at a later time about. But I did want a little touch on the artists. So unfortunately, because of D23, and I say that just because I'm jealous that I'm not going to D23, but the game developers, Ryan and Steve, are going to be there. So they weren't at Gen Con this year. I was hoping to see them at Gen Con because I now know who they are because I didn't know who they were last year. And so, but they did have 2 artists there. So they had Dustin Ponzino, who did the Gizmo suit from set 3, so I got it signed there.
Nice.
And he did the Hans.
It's a good Hans.
So the he also did a card in Ursula's, not the Illumineer's Quest. I don't remember which card it is off the top of my head. But they were selling like their art because they have like a whole little cool art section there. He's also the artist who did all of the Chromacons for set 5. So
cool.
Nice. So he's the same one. We'll have a link to his website, inkwellillustrations.com in the comments below. Yeah, you're saying, Brett?
He did the Anna in the Ursula's Quest. Yeah, it looks really good.
It's got a wild signature. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is a pretty crazy signature.
For the people who can't see it, it's like a bunch of lines and a bunch of dice. It's pretty crazy. You can't read it for sure, but yeah, that's cool.
Like flinging cards around here. The other one I met was Corey Codby. So he did his first card that he did, which I did not know. We were talking with him a while. We actually chatted with him a little bit more. Is Sergeant Tibbs from the first chapter. Ooh. He also did Magic Flower, Caterpillar,
nice,
and Magic Carpet, and he's also doing Remember Who You Are in set 5.
Yep.
But what was so great about him is a lot of artists, which, not knocking by any means, they're, you got to make a living, is they sell for their signatures, right? So they charge money for their signatures. But what Corey does is he asks for a donation because he's from South Carolina and he donates the funds to a local animal shelter there. And so like he just asks you like, how much do you want to donate? And you give him that amount and he signs the cards. A super nice guy. He was actually talking about like how awesome the Lorcana community was. That like somebody didn't know that his first, like how would they know that this is the first card he did pen to paper, the Sergeant Tibbs, and he was showing off how like they had made like little keychains out of the card for him, like just coming somebody had made, he didn't have it, but he was talking about it at some convention he did where somebody had made a diorama of the Sergeant Tibbs. So they had taken couple of the cards and made it like 3-dimensional and put it in like a thing and gave it to him. And he was like, how awesome is that to like make it for me and then seek me out at a convention to give it to me. So he had just nothing but high praise for like how awesome the Lorcana community is. And I just want to also say like one reason why I love this game so much is I got to meet so many awesome players from really all over at this event, and these cards that I just showed were not cards I brought. I did not know that these artists were going to be there. I found out while playing. Somebody was mentioning it while we were playing. I didn't have these cards. Somebody just like found them in their deck, gave them to me and my friend to go get signed. They were like, hey, like, do you need these cards? And so just gave them to us so that we could go.
I love that
sign because I didn't know, like, and all the cards I had, bulk cards were at the hotel room. So I would not, if it weren't for how awesome the Lorcana community is and helping folks get what they need and communicating that and stuff. So like everybody's super friendly, figuring out how it's like you got to go here to this booth or this is how you do certain things and stuff. So everybody's super supportive. And everybody has really interesting ways that they come into the game. And so it was really great to see that.
Yeah, I definitely want to second that as well. The Lorcana community, I feel like they are the best subscribers and like they hit the like button better than any other community out there. And that's really like one of the pros of the community for sure. Sorry, I just had to throw it out there. I had to plug it.
I will say my biggest bummer, the biggest miss, is that we didn't have stickers yet for the pod, if you will, our show. We will though. We will.
I'm excited.
And so I wish I could give them out, but I did get us a subscriber in line waiting. So Tyler, if you're listening,
it was really cool.
Shout out.
I got the notification on my phone of a new subscriber, and I was like, "That's pretty cool." And like 3 hours later, Vince is like, "Got a new subscriber, by the way." And I was like, "Is his name Tyler?" He's like, "Yep."
It was great. We actually played Lorcana in line because we were there, so early that we played a big multiplayer and stuff. They didn't have either of their decks, so I just my friend had a spare deck with her, and then I had a spare deck, and so we both played.
And then you played your super ruby amethyst deck that just destroyed them. Yeah.
Well, I have two. No, actually, I didn't win. But I have two ruby amethyst decks, which I feel like is unfair. But I blame you, Andy, because I asked in our team channel that because I could not think about what to bring for this multiplayer event, and I was like, hey, I need help on this multiplayer, and Andy's like, here's a ruby amethyst list, and I was like,
oh, you took my list? Let's go.
I took your list. It worked really well. I lost one round because the one weakness of that multiplayer deck is that it's hard to remove locations
Sure.
a little bit. You got Maui, you do obviously have
make that someone else's problem.
Yeah, but that's the problem is I had to deal with it because nobody else on the board was dealing with it. I did win the other multiplayer though. It was really interesting. That player was playing one of the players was playing a very heavy location deck. And just I don't know, probably I think it had 20 some odd locations, very few characters, just Tink in there and items and stuff, and it was no, I'm sorry, I feel I will just say this: locations are always a threat. Do not leave them on board ever. If you see a location, just don't be oh, I'm gonna leave that there. No, take care of it. As Brad and I found out playing 2-pack battles today in multiplayer, those locations slowly get you the lore. Yes, I know you won over there after you destroyed my character. But it's fine. But yeah, it was a fun time. I hope one or both of you get to come next year because I cannot believe we'll be at the precipice of set 10 next year in 2 years.
Wow.
Kind of wild to think about. But we got a lot of time between now and then, and we're going to move on to a special edition of the Villain of the Week, which is actually going to be Villains of the Set. Ooh. So we have a few questions here. So, Andy, you're up first here. What is your favorite playable card from this past meta? And it does not have to be a set 4 card or Ursula's Return card.
Yeah, and I actually went with one that wasn't a set 4 card because I feel like part of the fun, at least in the beginning of this game, maybe towards later on it might develop a little different, but now every new set that comes out, old cards become drastically different. The printed text stays the same unless you're Bucky, but then the card itself and how it works in the meta is greatly different. Buck 'em. Yeah. So my card was Lawrence, Jealous Manservant.
Wow.
So he's a 2 card, 3 cost. He's a 0/4 with 2 lore in steel. However, when he has no damage on him, he has 4 attack. So this card, quest for 2, it's a great follow-up to Smee. You play your Smee and the opponent's like, oh my goodness, 2 lure, and I'm gonna get banished by 3 attack when I trade back. And then you followed up with the Lawrence, and now it's a 4/4 that they have to deal with. Another questing for 2. It really pushes along that Steel Song deck, which we actually talked about on a previous podcast. We saw it do fairly well in some of these later DLCs. Maybe it does great in DLC Toronto. But that Rapunzel synergy, getting that heal, being able to attack for 4, take some damage, heal it off, draw some cards. I think Lawrence had a big comeback this set, and I actually think because of that, we'll see that in that pile of sort of considered cards whenever I'm building a list and I'm thinking what other cards could go in here and work out. I think Lawrence is going to be on people's consideration list for a while.
I think you're 100% right. I'll tell you, I saw that card in the constructed that I played on Sunday, and so I won my first round. And then which, by the way, the player I was playing in the first round, I won't mention her name here, but phenomenal player. Like, we had actually played in another like match earlier, and so I think actually like I beat her to get the mat, which I felt bad about because like but I was like I really want that mat. But so we were playing, and she was playing a purple steel deck, so amethyst steel. Won that, then go to the second match to play. Here I sit down, steel song, and yeah, he has that card in that deck. Man, does that make that? He had that, and also the golden harp. The like, I think it's a 1 cost
1/4.
but if you don't, but you banish if you don't play a song.
Yep.
And like in a steel song deck, you're almost always playing a song, and man, it's like every time I didn't think he'd have a song and that card would get banished. It's like, and like you could just go wide too. It allows you to go wide, and you like then your only answer in a Ruby Amethyst, which is what I was playing, is that be prepared, and like you got to have it, and if you don't have it, you're really hurting. And yeah, I lost that.
Yeah, the golden harp is similar to the flute, right? Where later game it's much better. You whole new world and you get a couple of those golden harps, you play it down, sing a song, tap your flute, keep those alive for another turn. It like you said, be prepared or nothing. It really pressures the opponent for sure. What about you, Brad? What is your favorite playable card from this past set?
I didn't reach back as far as you did. In fact, I stayed in set 4. And again, this is where we kind of preemptively talked about the questions here. I think mine overlap 1 and 2. I really like Be King Undisputed. That's also going to answer probably question 2 here shortly, but it's being a 4 cost, it's uninkable, but it's a song that biasness aside from Be Prepared, but it forces the opponent to remove one of their characters on the board. So it's like a Lady Tremaine. If you don't have protection out there, whatever you do have out there in the late game, if it's a high cost card like Tamatoa, I've been victim to that card so many times. If I had to, I had another idea that I was going to use, but I don't think it's as playable as the Be King Undisputed. But that's the one that I went with. I like the art on it. I like the playability of it, and I think that it's going to stick around in Ruby for a while, or Ruby pairs for a while.
What is your other one there, Brad? Because I'm not convinced on the playability of Be King Undisputed. I've gone up and down on that card.
Really? I was going to use one for my deck because after you chose something from set 2, I was like, maybe I should have reached back further. And so I started looking at my deck that I've been running, and I thought one of the cards that really saved me in a lot of the set championships, especially at Fantasy, and the last one that I did was Rise of the Titans. I never had a lot of answers for Queen's Castle, which was just an instant 4 of in all these Ruby Amethyst decks that were hovering at the top of every one of these set championships. So I thought, and this just happened in the last couple minutes, I'm like, I think Rise of the Titans would be one that I would probably include as, I wouldn't say favorite playable card, but it definitely saved my butt quite a bit, and has its function in not only locations, but those pesky items that might give the other player the advantage with Aerial or the Quill with the ramp. If you can get that out and not have to worry about Castle. Since I guess a lot of people probably weren't playing blue purple, but in that example was not a very good one. But
Blurple, it's coming though.
I think it is. That's a conversation for another time, because I have one ready too that I'm excited to try.
Mixed berries.
Mixed berries.
What?
Mixed berries rocks to the moon.
Berries and cream. If you get that reference, you're
I get it.
Millennial listener. If you're not, look it up. I agree with you, Andy, though, on the Be King Undisputed. I think so one, I will say, awesome card in multiplayer. Phenomenal. Probably way overvalued in multiplayer.
I put them in your multiplayer deck, right?
Yeah, I did. Absolutely. And I love that card. That card was so great in multiplayer. I see why it's in Ruby Amethyst. I play it. I think it's an inefficient removal card, though.
Yes.
And that is my one downside to it. It's the reason why, I much prefer a card like Medusa over Tremaine, right? And so because I can target removal where I want it to go, but there are cards that are out of the reach of Medusa, and that's where having Be King Undisputed is fine and stuff, and it has more utility in certain decks when it's but I'll just put a great example here of why I think it's inefficient removal is if you're a Ruby Amethyst player, you're playing a Steel Sapphire player. They play Tamatoa. They play, say,
Argus,
Argus, or whatever and stuff. My only answer in my deck now, if I have it, in my hand, if I, not pulling a Be Prepared or something, and now all I have is a Be King Undisputed. What card are you taking away off your board with a Be King Undisputed?
But that's the same thing with Tremaine, right? Which costs 6 ink to play every time, unless you're shifting some.
Right, but I think Tremaine is also inefficient at 6 cost. It quests for 2. There's a reason why it's in that deck, but there's also a reason why Tremaine fell out of fashion in favor of Medusa.
Right.
I don't, not discounting the fact that I think it's not a bad card. It's obviously being played. I just think removal is very expensive in Lorcana, and Be King Undisputed is an inefficient way of doing it. If you can sing it, it's a little less.
That's where I'm going with it. Is the fact that it's singable, and then you can play a rabbit or a goat or whatever else on 4 and 5, and sing it at the same time that you can use your ink to play Medusa to get the other person as well, right? Or Tremaine or whatever it is. It's just one of those things where the fact that it's singable makes it so much more, I think, valuable in my eyes. But again, you guys are the Ruby Amethyst players, and I'm just the person who loves Scar. So
yeah, I mean it's singable, which does make it probably less inefficient than something like Brawl per se. But what Vince touched on there, if they have a Tamatoa and an Argus out, if they're able to protect the character that the Be King would work on, the Aerial, the Tamatoa, the ones that you don't normally have removal, your Be Prepared is now your only answer. And if Be King is in your hand, it means Be Prepared. There's one less card that could have been Be Prepared in your hand. That card becomes very dead and very not good in a lot of scenarios. And you're trying to find this. Think of it like playing an old school like racing game or something or sports game where you have those bars for their speed, acceleration, handling, things like that. And you don't want, Be King can be really, really good, but it has a lot of its stats in one bar, right? It's not great in a lot of other situations. It's really great in other situations. So you want to try and find cards that are much more consistently valuable in more situations than something like Be King, because at best it's a 1-for-1. And you sing it, sure, with a rabbit and it gets rid of a Tamatoa, but I would kind of argue that the person shouldn't have played that Tamatoa in the first place, right? So unless they had that other thing to back it up, and a really good player is not necessarily going to fall to those traps of something like a Be King or a Tremaine, you absolutely want that much more guaranteed removal.
Yeah, I will say I think like the other thing, that 1-for-1 is what really kills it. Like if you could play it and it replaced itself, totally different scenario there, I think. Like that, just being able to draw a card off of it, to replace itself, 100% better.
And that's why Tremaine is slightly better. But the problem with Tremaine, I don't know that I've ever played a Tremaine that hasn't immediately gotten Medusa'd. Like, I won't even be playing
Yeah.
against a red deck,
Right.
and they'll still Medusa my Tremaine. The moment I play it, it's like,
That's right.
oh my
That's right.
goodness.
Medusa just like comes down from the sky to the board.
Exactly. She's like, I am the 6-cost uninkable ruby goddess. You know, you do not get to play.
So my choice for this is a card I love, which is Merlin Rabbit from set 2. I think that card, just the value you get on that card, it has a May ability, so if you don't want to draw, you don't need to. But when you want that, you're almost, except for some minor exceptions, you do want that card draw. It's just a great way to get answers. It's so flexible too, because you could, you can then turn around and use it to sing friends on the other side to get more card draw, because you don't care if that card gets banished necessarily, because then you're going to just draw another card off of it. If you're like desperate for cards, you can suicide it. Well, that's probably not the right word. You can intentionally banish it. Sorry, I apologize. I don't want to, I get that's a sensitive topic.
Unplay it. You can unplay itself.
There you go.
But you can, you can then get another card off of it to try to find your outs. And so I really appreciate the value that card brings into the game, bounce it back. There's just so many ways that card can be played in a game to create extra value there. You can put it down if you're worried about it. Be prepared to get some escape value out of that, so that there's some cost for your opponent. Using Be Prepared, basically, because you're going to get some card draw, much in the same way that having Goat on board allows you to get that lore. There's value in kind of playing to your outs a little bit, and so I really do enjoy that card.
Oh, I completely agree. I think Rabbit could easily be the best card of every set except for set 1, where it didn't exist. But like you touched on, the idea of just being able to quest that character and not care. That was playing Ruby Amethyst. That was one of the most beneficial things I had in my deck, was being able to continually advance my win condition without the worry of a needed piece of my puzzle, gone. Right? I don't want to quest with this, because then if it dies, then I don't get to do its thing. The Rabbit does its thing no matter what. It's guaranteed 2 cards. You put it out, and the other huge bonus I love about it is a good player recognizes that a rabbit and a goat, by extension, cannot be on the board longer than possible, right? Like, immediately you need to remove them. And when you're trying to advance your win condition and get to 20 lore, and they're using things like Medusas and Brawls on your rabbits, that is a very that is a very positive trade in your favor. And they don't have those removal tools for your better characters that are going to get you more lore faster, goats, sisus, Flynn's, whatever it may be. So the Rabbit demands removal, guarantees you card draw, and it's an overall I don't know a way where a Rabbit could be negative tempo or negative value really to you at all.
Yeah. So it is uninkable, but I will say it's like, I think even if it was inkable, I don't think I would ever ink it. It's the one card where I think because I think about this a lot when I'm playing games. It's like, you have like a rabbit and a goat in hand, and it's like, which one do I want to play? And like, unless I'm in a position to goat bounce to win and stuff, that rabbit is always going down instead of that goat, because there you get so much more utility out of that goat. And it's like, if I have to ink the goat to play the rabbit, I will do that. 9 out of 10 times. You
have the goat, but the rabbit, it could be anything. Like, even
exactly.
a goat, right? Yeah. Like, it could even be a goat.
It could be anything. It could be anything. So, as it could be anything, we'll turn to you, Brad, now. What is your favorite or best new playable card from Ursula's Return?
Easy. Triton's Decree. Easy.
No, we said playable card, Brad. We said playable.
Sir Hiss.
I was back and forth on this one. I never got to use it, and I think it's one of those instances where I've seen it used. And I mean, you're going to argue that it's not playable, and it's possible that it's not playable in its current state. But we saw Rochelle doing work with it in Chicago, the Sonic Warrior aerial. I always wanted to try something with her. I think that there is a place for her to just shoot that damage all the time, every time you sing that song. But I spent so much time on Blue Steel, which I guess she could fit into with the ramp that you get from Blue. But I never slotted her in because I was just too worried about building this deck around the Bucky meta. So that was one of them. The other one was Big Sisu. I think just that be prepared on a card with lore, 5 strength 4 body, I think, and then 3 quest for 3. Like she's not Medusa-able, and she comes out, she wipes the board of people of 2 cost or 2 strength or less, and she quests for 3. So if you can manipulate that with with a big Kita or something, if you're doing some kind of red yellow combination or whatever, lower those costs and wipe the board, and then she's just out there doing her thing for a couple turns. So I think there's I didn't get to play with her as much as I came away from red blue, but those are 2 cards that I really really liked.
Yeah,
Sonic Warrior. I don't think the Sonic Warriors. I think that's a good card. I will just say for folks that potentially are hearing the cat, if you want to see the cat, here's the cat.
The cat says, "I was not paid for this activity.
yeah.
I'm calling my union rep."
Don't give him any ideas. I'll have to pay him. I'll go bankrupt in cat treats.
The Sonic Warrior, it did a lot of work on me and actually one of the set championships. I saw it shifted on top of the yellow aerial and a steel song. I think
that's a neat trick. There.
It was nasty because obviously tons of songs, and I literally couldn't commit anything to the board. I was playing purple steel, so I did have a lot lower to the ground deck, and so I was looking towards. I'm at 13 to 15 lore, and I'm looking to play a Lilo or a Maleficent, and hope it sticks, right? I'm looking to play a Smee and hope it sticks. I just can't play anything. It won't stick because they can just Sonic Warrior this. And 8 strength or 8 willpower, is bonkers to get rid of. So the flip side of that, though, however, is had I only been playing our good old faithful Ruby Amethyst, I would have laughed and played Medusa the very next turn and been like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that card pretended to exist in this game." So I think it is another one of those cards where it can do a lot of work, but as soon as you sit down across from a person who has Medusa in their deck, you just kind of lose a lot of value.
Well, I think that's that meme that goes around, right? Which is whenever there's a high cost card, but it's 3 or less, it's Dusa, lurking behind the border there and stuff. But yeah, I played against this against Rochelle, which again, I'm so sorry I was mean to your characters. I really did want those promo cards. But which thank you, I appreciate. I got those promo cards that I wanted. Yeah, I think if this was a 4/8, this would have seen a significantly more amount of play because it has strong utility.
I'd argue that if this was a 4/5, it would still I don't think it even needs 8 willpower. If this was 4 strength, it just. I think that would push it over the edge.
Yeah.
I think you're absolutely right.
I do think it still needs to be inkable though, because
it is.
There are a lot of
it
is.
Right.
But I'm saying it would still need to be inkable. Like I was just saying in theoretic. So my card that I chose for this, which I think saw some play, but was also one of those cards where you're like, oh, is this gonna good or bad at the beginning of the set, is Great Stone Dragon.
Yes.
Nice.
So I think this card actually outperformed what I think our expectations was, which is that there's this idea that it's too late, you're not going to get value out of it, and I think that's true for some decks, but I think it found its home in Ruby Sapphire. And it's not a card you want to play on curve, so you don't want to play this on 3. But you play it later, and I think about the games, Andy, you and I played, where you were struggling against Ruby Amethyst, with that deck, but then you started to make some tech choices into that deck. So one was that Hercules, that 7/3, just to like one shot the castle, which is rather depressing for any Ruby Amethyst player who thinks they've got that like on the board, and then you're like, bam, gotcha. But I also think like super utility is just, you're slowly adding more ink to your inkwell, and like all of a sudden you're turning around and you're like 20 ink. It's like I can not only play Tamatoa, I can play Dime, I could then tap it, and it's like, no, oh my gosh, it's like it's kind of wild, and it really shows that I think these item matters decks just gets a little bit better each set, and I actually think this is kind of the unspoken hero, if you will, of set 4. And unfortunately, I don't think we saw a lot of success with Red Blue in the set in the maybe more in set champions, but in the DLCs. But
Dean did it.
It did. It did.
Yeah.
It
Dean
did.
did it. Yeah. He played Red Blue throughout there.
So, but yeah. What about you, Andy?
Well, I first want to say I definitely agree with your take there. I think Greatstone Dragon is a really good card. And you actually already you already revealed my card, which is Hercules for this set, which I distinctly remember the first time it was at the DLC that I played this Hercules. I was playing Red Blue and I played against a Ruby Amethyst matchup. Just as I expected, they played the castle. I've been holding on to this Hercules for way longer than I probably should have. And they played the castle, and I dropped it, and I one-turned it, and their jaw almost hit the ground. They were just like, "Wow,
oops,
that's a card." Yeah, crap, I didn't think about that, And it's objectively a worse card than Maui, right? When you look at it side to side. But because of Queen's Castle's prevalence in this meta, the Hercules just became such a nice card. And for a deck like I tried it in my Ruby Amethyst, and I'm still kind of on the fence about it. But for a deck like Red Blue, where you absolutely have the opportunity to ink that with something like Fishbone Quill, I think it's absolutely a worthy tech option. That kind of goes back to the Greatstone Dragon. That was the other thing I was going to say, is the fact that it's inkable is what really makes it such a great tech option compared to something like the Hercules. You could put that in almost any blue deck, and if you're not playing against the right matchup, you just ink it and you move on.
That's right. All right, so maybe our last question here. What is your favorite overall? Look, I'll come in again. We'll do that again. Your favorite overall card, which doesn't have to be playable, and why you like it. It could be art that you love it. It could be just a fun mechanic. It could be your favorite character. And I will go first. For me, it is the Bell Accomplished Mystic. And I'm saying it because of the artwork.
It's beautiful.
So
playmat now,
it's like
right?
Malia. They're coming out with the playmat, and that artwork is beautiful. I also think it has a really cool mechanic to the card. We didn't see too much play. I mean, of course, like I'm sure Spessy thinks it's the best deck ever, which is fine. Like, I mean, he did well with it at the like creators kind of set championship. But I'm picking it purely on the artwork because I think it's when I saw it, just even the card release, I was like, oh, that's so pretty.
Same.
And then like getting excited that they're like, guess what playmat is coming for Shimmering Skies? And I was like, yep, I want that playmat. Absolutely. And you're getting it, Brad, right? Because you had asked me if I want it, and I've pre-ordered the playmat.
Yeah, I pre-ordered it. I figured I had the beast. I had the beast, so I figured I better get Bell too.
Let's go. So what about you, Andy?
So my favorite card, I had a really hard time choosing, so I'm gonna pull a Brad here and just pick two. Cheat a little. I think Pegasus, Gift for Hercules, was probably my favorite at the beginning. The art is adorable. It's also an incredibly playable card. I mean, it was just like, move over, Pascal. Let me show you how 1-cost 1/1 evasives are actually done. And it, especially with the shift that it has too, like I think it's an all around great card. It hits on a lot of points, but at the same time, I really like the card Medallion Weights. I every limited event I played, that was like my go-to card. I think in one draft I had 3 Medallion Weights in my 40 card deck. That card carries the other 39 cards in your deck, and so I really wish it was playable. I saw a couple other good players in our area trying to tech it into like Ruby Sapphire a little bit and stuff, but I do think in the constructed format, given how tight that red blue list is and the Ruby Amethyst list, it's hard to really fit in there. And I think there's also a limited amount of challenging that sort of takes place in the current meta. But the idea of, in a limited format, being able to pay to get strength and card draw on a challenge repeatedly over and over again is just the opponent can't turn anything sideways. They just can't, or it gets banished and you get a card, and that is just not what the opponent wants at that time.
Right? Yeah. What about you, Brad? What's your choice in this category?
I had to go with Super Goof. When they revealed,
I keep so close to picking that character.
When they revealed that card and we were all speculating on Enchanteds, I was in my mind, I was like, this is too goofy of a card to, pun intended, to not do an Enchanted for, right? And everybody listening probably knows what he does, but he's a 4-cost inkable rush character, and then whenever you challenge somebody with him, you get 2 lore for it, and it's a cool looking card. He's got an Enchanted. He's in a super suit and he looks like he's flying, and it's overall just a fun card. But
I like the Enchanted of this card.
That's the one Enchanted that I wanted from this set, and I'm still upset about that guy in Chicago coming down while we were practicing the night before, and he's like, "Anybody got an Enchanted Yen Sid?" And I said, "Hey, right here. What do you want for it?" And he opened up his binder, had 2 Super Goofs Enchanted, and I was like, "Let's just do a 1-for-1." He's like, "No, man, I need like $30 too." And I'm like, "Get out of here. I'm not doing that. You got 2 of them, and you want this card. I want that one. Let's do it." Still salty about it because I'm probably never going to get that card now, as I'm not going to probably pay for it. But yeah, I think it's just a cool card, and that would be the one I pick.
Yeah, I think it actually supports my previous theory here that there isn't enough challenging in the current meta. Otherwise, I think Super Goof would have been an almost instant include in something like Ruby Amethyst, because 4-cost, a goat is 2 guaranteed lore, but it's 1 this turn, 1 later. Or, if you have the bounce, obviously it can be in the same turn. But that Super Goof, if you could reliably count on your opponent to have a exerted character, that Super Goof is 4-cost 2 lore. Like, period, right? Whether you kill it or banish it, whatever, you play it. But I think the lack of...
people were trying to make that card work early on in Ursula's Return. It just... It's like... value on board, if the ETB, if you will, of that card is just hard, I think.
They have to have an exerted character that you can challenge, right?
Yeah.
And you need to run more than
flavor.
Yeah, you got to run 4 of them. I don't know. If you really want to do the whole, like Andy said, if the challenging was more prevalent, run multiples of them, or probably run them with yellow so you can heal them up. Because with 4 body, he's only attacking 2 things at most without healing.
I do think in the mustard ketchup deck, if you will, I think there is utility there. And that deck just never really quite hit it off in the meta in set 4, unfortunately. Not that we didn't see it, it just wasn't a very prevalent deck. So one last question, because that was that was our villains of the set. But there's always cards out there that creators like us, who think we know everything are
I don't.
making predictions. Yeah, I don't either. But Andy does. Andy's confident. He's like, I know everything.
I got this.
But main predictions like, is this card going to be good or bad? My case in point is like Dime, right? Like we all looked at Dime and like that card not playable, and turns out it's like crucial to the whole linchpin of both Steel Sapphire and Ruby Sapphire. So the question here is, what do we think is going to be the future villain of the week for Shimmering Skies? So Andy?
I think it will be, this might be a cop-out answer, but I think it's going to be the new Daisy Duck.
Yep.
It's exactly. I got first pick in this draft, so I get to say the best.
We
card,
all knew we were all going to say Daisy. Yeah.
Daisy Duck is a 1-cost uninkable 1/4 that quests for 2. It has some wall of text on it that ultimately we could just kind of ignore, given the fact that 1-cost 1/4 lore is just insane. Technically, the wall of text does say that your opponent, I believe, reveals the top card of their library or
Correct.
their deck. If it is a character, they draw it. If it is not, it goes on the bottom, which I think against a lot of decks won't necessarily hit. If you think about it, any control-focused decks are going to be playing a considerable number of items or songs and things like that. Even something like Steel Song or our current version of Bucky, Green Steel, and stuff like that, it has a lot of non-character cards in it. So there's a very real possibility that it just doesn't hit at all. But even if it does, giving your opponent a card doesn't matter, because on turn 1, you play this card. There doesn't exist an answer in this game currently until turn 3. So you are guaranteed to get two quests out of this and 4 lore on this card. And I think 1 cost, 4 lore, giving your opponent a card potentially is a very fair trade-off. If not a very positive trade-off, and that's sort of in.
It's also punishing too, right? Because if you're trying to draw for that Storm Rage on or Friends on the other side or whatever, and she puts that at the bottom of your deck, right? So you're not getting the draw, and they're taking away that action. Like she's so brutal.
The worst case scenario for you is still really, really good, right? There are way better scenarios. It puts. Yeah.
I'll push back though and say I agree. You can remove this on turn 2.
How?
So you could play Queen turn 1, shift Queen turn 2,
and then attack it. Okay,
attack it.
That's assuming you're no. I mean, even then, like she's gonna have a bodyguard. Even if you're on the draw.
You wouldn't put a bodyguard down necessarily. Just the cards in general. You're absolutely right. There's both queens actually, yellow and red queen. Both can shift on 2. Okay. Yeah. Although there's no red 1 cost, so yellow will be a lot more consistent. I was also thinking you were going to say something like the turn 1, goons, basically the 1 cost 2/2, and then turn 2 the rush queen, and sending both of those into it.
You could do that, but that's a lot of value to do. But I agree. But my principal take, I think your principal take of this being a good card is correct. I'm just wanting to say
very hard.
There are options.
I will admit it will be very, very hard to take out before turn 3.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially with the current cards that are acceptable in like a playable deck, right? We can't be throwing jank cards in there. We're not. What about you, Brad? What's the next next lucky dime?
I don't know. I went all
Daisy,
in on.
You already said that one.
I went all in on Daisy. There's a lot of talk about Prince John's Mirror. I think might be a problem in the future with the its ability is whenever at the end of each opponent's turn, if they have more than 3 cards in their hand, they discard until they only have 3 in their hand. I don't know. It's one of the things like I'm not good at predicting. I need to see everything in action, but
you need to owe 3 to it before you realize it's really
exactly.
Good.
I need to see my butt get kicked and then work around fixing that. I mean, I guess we could say Mufasa. Mufasa has a lot of potential. to disrupt a lot of games. But there's a lot of gamble in that too, and pulling things from your inkwell and everything, and exerting all your ink to play him. So, yeah, I don't really have like Daisy was my number. I think okay, here's a good one. The new Pete in Steel. The 3-cost inkable Pete. Whenever you play him, your opponent can't play actions until your next turn. Until the start or until their next turn.
I mean, it's fine. It's fine to say Daisy too. We could have two of the same. I went outside the box a little bit here, so hear me out. Hear me out. I say the library, a gift for Belle.
That's a good one.
Oh, that is a really good card.
Whenever a character is banished while here, you may draw a character. And so there's been a big debate in our like Discord whether or not the value for this versus Queen's Castle is better or not. And my argument for why I like this card a little bit is that basically it makes all your cards that are exerted here a rabbit, right? You know, essentially, which, as we discussed earlier, good. I also think this location's harder to deal with than Queen's Castle. Right? Queen's Castle's hard to deal with. This is even harder to deal with. Right? So so this is likely 8 willpower, likely to sit on your board for a turn at least. Whereas like Queen's Castle, you're gonna maybe get a turn unless they're really lucky and trying to get that out and get rid of it. They're gonna be exerting a lot of things to get rid of it and stuff. You might, as your opponent, might say, okay, I'm fine with that location staying on board for a turn, but I'm gonna get rid of your exerted characters that you're questing with because I can't have those. So you're likely, I think, to get some value on your exerted characters there.
And it's cheaper. It's a 3-cost inkable. It has only 1 lore instead of 2, and it has a higher willpower. Still 1 cost to move there. It's you get that out on 3. What's a normal turn 3 for a Ruby Amethyst? Are you bouncing something with Fox for a rush and
Sisu?
Sisu,
That was Flynn Sisu Castle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now they have to deal with it sooner than turn 4 if you put Castle out on turn 4, which I don't think you always do, right?
Right. The difference is like Castle was an immediate answer, right? So let's say I've got, Chernobog's followers like a Cusco or something on board. I play this out on 3. I play it out on 3, right? Nothing's in there, so it doesn't matter, whatever. But the opponent looks at it and goes, okay, well, it's only 1 lore. It's going to take 4 turns before this, 2 turns before this equates to a single turn of a castle. And even if you were to load this up with a bunch of people, if those characters aren't a threat to the opponent, then the ability that this location gives also isn't a threat to the opponent, right? Because this is only when the characters are banished. I actually looked at this card versus the Amber location that has nothing to do with it, is not at all similar to this, but it's I think 3 cost. And it's 1 to move there, but it gives your characters +3 willpower. And I was trying to decide. I was trying to decide in my Amber Amethyst set 5 list whether or not
you're degenerate.
Yeah,
aggro deck.
Aggro, exactly, because that's the new meta. I was trying to decide whether or not either of these, and I think I ended up with 2 and 2. But I do really like the library that it goes to 8. I'm really curious to see how because it's different than Queen's Castle. You play Queen's Castle, you put something against Queen's Castle, it is an immediate must answer. This
listen, I get the answers that like Queen's Castle is a better card, if you will, than the library, but I think but my opposition to that and saying why I think library might be this like sleeper hit is as you say, it's not an immediate answer. It's not seen at that same threat, and so it gains some value. And like I'll just say like card draw I think is like the key to win. The more answers you have in hand to get more outs is always preferred. And if you could find ways to draw more cards in the game, it's like I'm not saying you're gonna win, but you're more likely to find the answers to win the game.
100%.
And so, and it has a lore on it too. So you're going to get 1 lore each turn. as this goes. So, yeah, it's going to be answered. As I said, all locations should be answered. They should all be considered threats. But I think it's just harder to remove, not seen as much of a threat. Much easier to say, like you said earlier when it came to Rabbit, it's like, I got to get that card off the board because it's going to generate too much value in certain ways. And you might be like, I can't take care of this 8, cost location, but I can take care of the, 3-4 Tremaine that's exerted for 2 because that's seen as a threat. Take that out. Well, now you as that get to draw that card. Yeah. And as I said too, you could also intentionally, banish your own characters if you're looking for outs in a game by running into things. So I think the value here versus, hoping and praying that with Queen's Castle that you're going to get, that castle's going to survive or your characters are going to survive to get the draw off of that castle and stuff. It's like, I can't tell how many times I've tried to rely on that. And it's like somehow miraculously my opponent always has the answers to either take care of the castle or, banish the characters that I have at that location.
It's because they have to, right? That's their out.
Yeah,
they're playing towards them.
Yeah.
I think you're absolutely right. I think this also goes to what I've said before, and I think is probably something to look out for in this new set. How board focused will this new set be? Because if the meta is considerably more board focused, then something like the library has much exponentially more value. Because, like you said, you're not throwing your own characters and banishing them into this to get a card draw. Now you are actively trading, which is something you would normally be doing in the meta as it is. And if that's a normal thing in the meta, then this card just adds tons of value to it.
Yeah. Well, you're here, folks. So we'll see where we are at the end of set 5, Shimmering Skies. We'll review and see, was Daisy Duck the villain, or was it the library, or could it be both? And with that, thank you all for listening. If you've enjoyed this episode, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. We're also on YouTube, so please be sure to like and subscribe and hit that bell icon to be notified of our next episode. Until next week, stay safe, fellow villains. Be wary of wannabe heroes who want to disrupt your villainous plans. And as always, remember the rules of villainy.